real quick.
Yep.
Okay.
The botchery
This is
was
all
really tame.
documented. Hello, SAPD. I have it. Hello and welcome to this episode of Night School Out of Character. This is what episode are we? Are we already on episode 3?
Episode 3.
Whoa, guys, look at us being consistent.
When you're quarantined, you have the time.
I know. Thank goodness. And since this is the only way or the only kind of content I feel like we feel comfortable doing right now, we're in luck. But today we kind of wanted to talk about how we've kind of formed as a group a really good bond, and we really know how to play really well with each other. But and I feel like not all of us have played with different groups, but whenever you enter a new group, I feel like there's a lot of navigating, like social navigating, that has to happen in order for you to feel comfortable as well as everybody else to feel comfortable. So that's kind of what we wanted to talk about today. So I don't even know who here has the most experience with that. I feel like it might be you, Michael.
I have played in a fair number of games. We'll go with that.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think it's not just, I think it's beyond thinking tabletop games or role-playing games for that matter. It's any kind of game. When you jump into that kind of game night group, there's social hierarchy there that you have to kind of deal with, and it can be really intimidating. I remember the first group that I jumped into, I'm actually still playing with them, and I play with them pretty much weekly now. And I was terrified, like to the point that if anybody who knows me knows that I work on Vasquez time. And so if we're supposed to be there at noon, I am there at 11:30 because that's just how I am. I have to be early. So I'm at a stranger's house way too early and just waiting to get in. Once I get into the house, it's just me waiting on the other players. And it's like, how do you talk to these people? How do you make a connection? And then you formulate like what the plan's going to be and like how you usually play with other groups or people you're comfortable with. And it never happens that way because everybody plays drastically different. There are homebrew rules they follow that they use to speed up or slow down the game. Sometimes they don't like the same parts of the game that you do, and it can really make you feel awkward that it might not be a fun experience, or there might be something that kind of irks you. It makes you upset because you don't agree with it, but it's not your home turf. So you kind of have to decide, am I just going to stick it out and hope that it gets better? Or do I speak up and possibly be that person that upsets the status quo?
Yeah. How quickly in a group can you tell if this is going to be a fun game or if this is not going to be a fun game?
I don't know. It varies. The quickest ever has been before the game's even started. There have been times that I've sat down at a table and just the demeanor of the person, not even just their character, like they might be trying to get into character and they might be channeling a little bit of it. But I've had one that I've sat down and the moment I heard the character's voice, I was like, I absolutely can't, because it is arrogant, it is obnoxious, it is extremely shrill, and they're speaking at a dynamic level that's way too loud for comfort. And I can tell they're enjoying it. So it's like they're going to drive this home. And that's great because it really could be an outstanding character. But I don't want to have to hear that and deal with that. So I've had times where I've sat down and I've been like, this might be my one time here. Because I can't stand that. Almost, I equate it to like having a little brother or little sister. It's that nagging effect versus I want to play a character for comedic effect or for an awkwardness or a socially awkward character. There's a difference between annoying and socially awkward.
Yeah, there definitely is. And I think when it comes to like those kinds of things I think don't affect me as much, like the character traits, like the voice, or like little things like that, or not little things, because they're different for everybody. It might be a really big deal for other people, but what I can't get around, what I can't get over, is if a character or if a person behind the character is misogynist or is racist. And I get that within the confines of the game, there are some times when that kind of conversation or role play comes up. But I think it says a lot if almost immediately after the person gets out of character and makes sure that you're okay and kind of checks in with you. And I think those kinds of things are really difficult to navigate with a new group, because you don't know what their belief systems are. You don't know what their social rules are. So figuring that out is really difficult. That's
Yes.
kind of my hard rule, where I can tell this is not going to work or we can do this. Elizabeth, you're kind of newer to, well, I wouldn't even say newer to finding new game groups, because I feel like you do a lot of game nights as well. What do you feel like is a big rule for you?
I don't know if it's well, just personality type wise, I think it's really interesting, Michael, that you say sometimes, like right off the bat, you're able to tell if this is going to work or not. Because that makes me think, because I've really only played with y'all, if you think like role-playing tabletop games, whether it's been just us or we go somewhere and play with other people. So it just makes me think about those, and there were only 2 times, like where in that process did y'all being more experienced realize like, oh, this is how this is going to go in a positive or negative way, and like you can have both at the same time. I think generally in any like game night situations, I think it's usually with people I know, and even like a trivia night sort of situation where you're playing like maybe on a team with people you know versus teams of people you don't know. There's sometimes like in proximity, maybe some interactions. In my experiences, I don't think I've had any that are super negative, but I think especially maybe in that trivia game night, if you're at a bar situation, you're open to more risque comments or offensive comments because people are maybe not up on their toes. But like other like just game nights, it's always been with people that I'm friends with, and it's like we all have established relationships. And my personality type is not one to like, oh, this is bad. Let's do something about that, or even like, I don't know. That's not something. It's always been with people I know, so I don't think it's something. And we have those established relationships, so we haven't had something that it's like, uh-oh, someone went there.
I can say though, Hovda, on those times that we did go out together and we tried playing in different locations at different local stores, and we took you along to kind of get your feet wet in the role-playing game kind of world. I remember Hovda specifically making his characters be somebody who would find your character. Like, I think that it helps to have somebody in the group, mm-hmm. even if it's not, sometimes it is you, but sometimes if you sit down and you realize there is somebody who is trying to find those other people who are struggling to connect and are forcing them to connect. Because he did a great job of really finding your character and trying to push you into circumstances or say, oh, well, you should come with me. Because sometimes that is it. You have to have somebody who's the icebreaker and can quickly say, you know, I see that you're not interested in these people in the party for whatever reasons. Mm-hmm. So let me pull you along and give you a reason to be here besides just sitting here and waiting for your turn.
Well, and I think that go ahead.
There's definitely a way to do that. I think sort of like how Kat was talking, where your character comes off more misogynistic or like overbearing. But it's for me, it's more enjoyable where you can, you know, have that smaller connection on something to build, you know, characters' interactions with each other.
When I think that's one of the really nice things about this kind of game. There are so many players where even if you maybe are not feeling the vibe of the entire group, maybe there's one person that you feel like is a safe person that you can talk to or that you feel comfortable with, and you can role play with them, and you're still a part of the game, the whole story, in a way that makes you feel comfortable and safe in the group.
I think it also comes down to, for me personally, I have a tolerance level, like I said, an annoyance of like your acting. That's very different for me than your character, because there are story tropes that go throughout cinema, through play, through musical theater, that have always had misogynistic characters, racist characters, people who are highly offensive, downright evil and sadistic people that make great narrative characters. And this is a shared story. So, I mean, it's expected that there will be something like that, and the world isn't hunky-dory, because otherwise there's no conflict. However, if you are playing one of those characters, even if you're playing an evil character, which I am actually enjoying right now, a campaign I'm in, out of the 7 players, pretty much 6 of them are evil. But we're all getting along and still moving through the world and doing, and it's great to see a different perspective on it. However, just because you're evil doesn't mean you're like full force, that's all you care about, is upsetting people around you and making them mad. What I noticed, though, is some of those players in games who like to play those really dick characters, when their character dies and they re-roll a new character, if a character comes up and it has the exact same personality, or you play another game and their character is acting the exact same way, it almost starts to show that you're not playing a character anymore. You are really projecting, and that's when it becomes really awkward for me. I've had many players who have made very, very sexist remarks and kind of laugh it off, and you're like, well, that was a joke, I guess, but it makes sense for your character. But then you see them in multiple characters and you're like, I'm really getting tired of hearing those jokes.
Yeah. Oh, it's not a character. That's you.
Yeah, that's a projection.
Yeah.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah. Well, and it
way,
just,
way to bring down the room.
well, no, and it just kind of goes to show like how important group chemistry is. Like, and that's not to say that you should never like allow like outside people into your group. I think that's healthy, and I think you should, and it's good for the game, and it's good for us as people to bring other people in. But I think having that boundary and kind of that set of expectations at the table of, hey, these are the things that we like as a group are not cool with, and it's really important that we stick to that. And I feel like we've never like had to spell that out. We've never had that conversation with each other.
We did. We actually did. But before Vick was here. In a previous game we played, we actually had a conversation, one of our mini session zeros.
Oh,
we never
right.
had a session zero, but we were like, we should probably talk about what we can and can't do. And it happened once we decided to start recording as test audio of our last campaign to see if we could put a format out for night school when we were going to start. And the very first thing we said here are the non-negotiables. You are not allowed to do this, 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 or this. And we threw it on the table.
Yeah.
What up, Vic?
I do remember that now.
We've had some of those for this group, like as mini conversations, like just as reminders of like, hey, don't do this, like before we start to film that particular episode. But not, I wouldn't say like as a full scale laying out on the table, this is okay, this is what I'm comfortable with, this is my hard no. But I feel like there have been, but it ties in very well with like just some of the, rules. I don't know.
Well, and I feel like it also goes to show like how natural it is for us as friends to establish boundaries for each other. And I think that's a really healthy thing for us as well. Which is, again, something that really shows how strong of a bond we have as a group, where if you were to go out to another group, would you feel comfortable giving those expectations to a new group? Because I don't think I would.
I wouldn't.
I don't think I would need to, because it's one of those things like what you guys said, like being friends with y'all makes it easy, because it's like, not that I would say I'm pushing the limits, but it's like I know sort of how far I could take my character if I needed to. But it's like, you know, when I have gone to like other groups, and it's like you can sort of tell how certain people, either how much experience they have or how they want to play stuff like that. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, this isn't going to mesh well with how I want to play, but I can still get enjoyment from playing like this other way. And if it's only like a one-off, it's not that big a deal, you know. But it is, if it was going into something longer, it's definitely something I would bring up after the fact, if it was that big a deal. But for me, you know, there's not a lot of stuff I feel that would fall in that category.
Could you give an example of something that would make you say something at the end of a game, like something that you would want to talk to somebody about?
For me personally,
Yeah,
that's what I say. Like, there's not a lot of stuff that bothers me, so it's
I guess
really
that's
difficult.
But you know what?
But
You've checked in with me though, and I don't know if it's because like Kat has said, like we're friends with each other. It's easier to broach those topics. But like you've checked in and like, hey, are you comfortable with this? Yeah, sure. Thanks for checking. Like, but I think that's also because we know each other so well. Like, it's okay to ask each other those things. But when you go into like a one-off at a place, like you sit down to play the game, I think it could, because you maybe don't know all those people, it could be really awkward to be like, hey, are you comfortable with blah, 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 before you get started? Because you may put those other players on edge.
Well, for instance,
yeah, exactly.
Kat, I can give you an example, because this is going up on the internet. People are going to see it, and there's no hidden fact that there's controversy even within the RPG world, tabletop RPG world, that there are controversies of people who are broadcasting who put certain risque content out there, and they consider it to be funny or a joke. And one of the biggest ones that's been popping up is sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's hard because when you really think about it, if you're writing a storyline as a GM, and there is a character who is, maybe you come up to an NPC who is engaged in a toxic relationship like that, and that's one of the kind of side quest missions or something for you to be involved in, that's a really passionate story of what could you do to help out. But if you are doing it in a way where you are actually finding ways to assault other people at the table, which happens, where the DM will make skeevy characters and find people who are playing who they consider weak characters, which sadly a lot of times it tends to be someone playing a female character. They'll try to find them and like really push on them, and then do the dice rolls, and maybe they fudge their numbers just because they want that story. They think it's going to be exciting, but it's not. As a player, even as me, right now I'm playing a female character. My first female character actually my second female character I've ever played. But the party doesn't know that I'm female at the moment. So I've had some really questionable jokes thrown my way, and I keep having to check myself as a player and think, okay, my character, how would she respond to this? And I have in game had to respond about, I call them back, or I've actually attacked them a couple times and done stuff, and they don't get it. But it's a hard balance of, I have to remember that in game, yes, there are things being said, and my character's allowed to react. I have not heard them say anything or do anything that has been extremely offensive, or where they have actually made a sexual kind of advance or force. Like, there's no rape, there's things like those are hard no's in my book. So whenever I put stuff together, there are times even in our campaigns I've had to come across people who are a little skeevy and get handsy, but I would never in my life try to act out a scene where it's like, okay, well now they're gonna force you down. That's a no.
Yeah, that would absolutely be a hard pass. I think if I were at somebody's house playing that I didn't know, I would get up and leave, because that's not okay. That's never okay, and that's a hard line.
Well, and I think it's a choice to make that happen in a game.
It is. It absolutely is.
It's not okay in real life. If like you said, as a side story that someone's trying to help make that stop, but I think that's an absolute choice to have that happen. And if you're choosing to do that in a game like that, then
you're
making light of something that should not be made light of.
Mm-hmm. And at what cost? For the sake of what you think is an interesting story, it's not worth it.
There's better stories to be told.
There are so many better stories to be told.
And that's it. I feel like in the DM, GM kind of world, the reason those things come up is a lot of times they're planning out story, especially if it's homebrewed, and they're thinking this would be a great shock, and they want shock value, which is something our society has really, really pushed over the last couple of decades, is how gruesome, how shocking, how offensive can we push cinema. And I feel like they're trying to convey that now into a narrative form in tabletop role-playing games, and they think this would be perfect. It's really going to throw everybody. However, there are better stories. There are thousands of other ways you could spin the story without going that direction. And a lot of times I don't think people remember that this is you sharing a story. It's not you writing the story.
Yeah.
So whatever you put out there, you are forcing your players to be a part of. And you might have a player who might have gone through something very similar. And how can you justify making them go through that again? Especially, that's why, like I said, rape, suicide, there's one more that I have on my list. I can't think of what it is, but those are two of my big, I won't go there, because you will never really know if your players have a bigger tie to that and they can't separate game from personality.
Yeah. Well, and I think that would be a helpful rule for any GM or DM to follow, because you're right, you can never know. Yeah.
It's almost common sense, but then to say use common sense.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
exactly.
It feels silly to even say, but there are so many people who don't follow that rule, which is kind of ridiculous and really sad.
Yeah.
But
did you just spoil your character for all the people playing with you, Vasquez?
Yeah, who knows? Maybe they watch it.
Spoilers. We'll put a spoiler warning.
Yeah, we big spoiler alert across.
Just letting you know
if you're in this party with Vasquez, tune out now.
No, I mean, it's a fun topic. It's not a fun topic where we're at right now, but it's an interesting topic when you think about this. I mean, I would love to go into a further talk on another day. What makes a good story? What are the things, because those tropes that we were talking about, Tropes and Atrocities is the name of the episode, and there's a lot of atrocities that turn you off to games, but what are those things that, like, that's the kind of story you want to play? Because I can tell you there are groups that when I go in, like I was hopping on Roll20 a couple of times, just trying to find other games and just test out one-shots. One I went into, and as soon as I heard the voice of like a 14-year-old boy DMing, I was like, I can't. And I had to just back out, because I'm an educator, so that's a weird circumstance for me as an educator to be in a room with a child. Even though I'm not in a room, I was like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But when I would find games that were playing live, it's interesting to see that some people really, really want that high fantasy, Lord of the Rings narrative drama with lots of lore, and there are some who are just, okay, we're going to get into a game and you point me in a direction and tell me what to do, and then let's roll dice to see how well we do. Like, they want it so linear that they want it spelt out. And I've noticed DMs do that very, very quickly. You can tell, are they sure, I want to see what you can come up with, or guys, you got to get back on track because I don't have anything else for you to do except for this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious for us to talk kind of like, what are your favorite moments whenever you know what to do and you get to figure out how to do it, or when you have no idea what's on the agenda and you're just guessing at things?
Or if that happens at the same time.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, I feel like we went to one game store where we were playing with some other people, and it was exactly what you just described, equally both ways. There was so much backstory, so much lore, and it was beautiful.
Hours. It was.
But it was irrelevant.
Yeah.
and then it was very much like, no, you can't go in that room. No, you can't go down that street.
You can't burn down that door made of wood.
Like it was yeah, and it was a very weird combination of both of those things. But then on the flip side, there have been other games where we go to and nobody has any idea what's going on, GM included, and we're there in a tavern doing magic tricks with the door because we don't know what to do. Like, so, and I feel like you're right. You figure that out very quickly, the kind of game that you're going to be playing. And
it's like trying to do a puzzle without all the puzzle pieces.
It's like doing a puzzle.
It's frustrating.
With no edges and all of the puzzle pieces are the same color.
Oh, did you see that glass puzzle? That's it's just like solid glass, but it's all cut out.
No.
Give it to me.
Yeah, I know.
Give it to me.
Wait till the next quest; it'll be there.
But I mean, I'm pretty sure, or I hope y'all would be able to tell. For me, I love immersive storytelling. I love that I want to believe a world, and I want to believe that there are rules and regulations and consequences. And I like to also like set up lots of parameters. So at the very beginning of our campaign, it was a lot of, here's what's happening, here's the full kind of history. There was a lot of talking, but once I get that and y'all set off, I like to step back as much as possible because I really want to see what y'all would come up with and have more of a sandbox style than just be on a track and say, these are the points you go to, and now you've checked that off, now you can go here.
Yeah. We're at A, we're going to B, we're going to C, we're going to D, we're done.
But I also have to stay like close by because there are lots of times that y'all do get, well, we have so many things we can do. Let's talk for 90 minutes of what we can do. And I'm like, okay, I've got to give y'all some kind of clue of like, push you this way to get you started. Because players can get stuck on there's so much to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I never know what y'all like or like what other people really like. Because I know for me, if I'm in a game, if you tell me that if you keep probing like, oh, you get a message, it says go here. Oh, you have someone who walks over and reminds you that you should go here. But in my mind, someone kept talking about this other event. I want to go see that. And I've been building a plan of what we're going to do. I want to pursue that. And the more you tell me, no, the more I'm going to try to do it. Because I want to do it. That's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like you have a really good balance, Michael, of letting us be stuck and letting us try to talk through it and noticing when we're just not getting anywhere, which happens very often. It happens a lot.
The other thing is, I think we could also talk about it on another episode about like, it comes down to homebrew rules and things, but there's certain people who like, they wait to see if somebody else does an action, and if it doesn't work, then they jump in and they try to do the same action. And it's so to think about it that way, because it's weird to see like a party of 11 people and they're like, I try to pick the lock. No. Okay, I try to pick the lock. No. Okay, like it's those kind of things where you're like, I can tell they want to get through to the next point and they feel like it's a line, and I can tell they're linear players.
Yeah.
Versus like
The
I
very
hear it's
X's and
locked.
O's.
I walk out of the room and I'm like, okay, let's go find a window. Like there has to be another way.
Yeah. It's almost like if you imagine it in real life, it would be like if everybody showed up to work at the same time and was trying to badge into the door, and the first person tries this says, oh, it doesn't work. If maybe one other person's like, you know what, let me try mine, and it doesn't work, 70 other people are not going to line up and try theirs if it's not working.
Girl, but
I don't know. I think we give some people too much credit.
Yeah. What you just described is elevator door mentality.
Mhm.
I push the button. You saw me push the button. Why'd you push the button? Well, I'll push the button. It'll go faster. Like,
That's true.
it happens. But it's those people. They're linear. They
Mhm.
want this to be. It's a scrolling video game. I want to go to the next screen because that's where you go.
Yeah.
And I think that's also part of the player trope thing of like, you want to find groups that have the same mentality as you. And when you sit in a group and you realize, I do not the same way as any of you, get out. Get that group. It's okay. Go find another group.
Mm-hmm. When I think I feel like that's the moral of all of this is if the group isn't working, that's okay. That doesn't mean the game is not for you. Find a group that works for you. Find your tribe.
Find your tribe.
There's some very good X's and O's players out there. Like I know we play with a few where it's like they are all about just rolling dice and completing quests. And it's like the role play stuff they sort of check out on, but it's like they do a good job of not interrupting the role playing while they're checked out for the most part.
No matter what, just remember, we've already said it multiple times. We keep hinting at different game shops. If you go and you support your local gaming shops, you are going to find boards. You are going to find groups that are looking for players. They are out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is really awkward to step forward and be like, I'm going to try with a new group. But they also know that many times people will show up and you won't see them again. So Be brave, take a step, put it out there. And while you're there, support and buy local items because especially right now, you can't go to them, but
curbside
pickup help our local
and
shops
maybe
out.
Someday you'll be lucky and get to play with us.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sticking with us through this conversation, talking about how we find new groups and testing the waters with all of our groups. Be sure to subscribe below, hit that red button and hit the bell to be notified of any new content that we put out. We're going to try to be putting these out every Wednesday. Yes, every Wednesday.
Sounds good.
So be sure to keep an eye out for those and follow us on all of our social media at Night School RPG. Thanks.